This is my little mini Talon EVO. It was made by MRO, not me. It's the only build in the house that I didn't put together myself. But here's how easy it is to install this RFID in this airplane. Right here in the bay underneath is the MRO telemetry radio. It isn't even glued into the model. It's just stuck in the channel here in the fuselage. So all you have to do is pull it forward just a little bit and it comes right out. Oops, here we go. It comes right out. There it is. It's a 433 telemetry radio. I shouldn't have cut that wire on my drone tag yesterday, but I have another 6-pin here. This is how hard it is. You unconnect this connector, you connect that connector into this side of the drone link. You take this connector, connect it back into the radio. I can stick it back where it was. And I can put that in like that and close the bottom. I am done. All of my airplanes with that type of setup, it would be that easy. Now, in truth, this is the only one with that setup. So if I wanted to move it to another airplane, only thing I have to do is pull this out, unconnect the connector here, disconnect this connector, leave it sitting like that so I can put the RFID back in the next time I want to fly it, close it up, store it on the shelf. This is one of my larger models. Most of my larger models have Dragon Link on them. That means there's a 6-pin connector right down there. Now this receiver is glued in, so this isn't going to be as easy a process as the other one was. But it's still a matter of disconnecting that 6-pin connector, connecting that connector here, and then connecting this down to that Dragon Link, and then shoving it right in there, closing the hatch. This is one of my Skyhunter 1800s. It's the same deal. I have everything mounted on the tray that can slide out easily. Again, we have a Dragon Link receiver right here with the little 6-pin connector right underneath there. Yes, it's going to be somewhat a pain in the posterior to cut this tie wrap, lift that up, and take that connector loose right there. But no more than anything else. I mean, I've been building these things for years. That's no worse than having to replace a bad receiver. This is my little 5-inch Freestyle. It's had a GPS on it since the moment it was ever built. I started out in the 3DR days in 2010. I have been getting slammed by people for years because I want telemetry and GPSs on everything I build. And they're constantly hassling me, you don't need telemetry. Well, now my telemetry's coming into its own because the fact that it's there means I can just put this little remote ID module in line with the telemetry. Now, this one doesn't have telemetry on it. But tell you the God's awful truth, if I could have found a Dragon Link receiver for it, I would have built it just like the other ones with a Dragon Link instead of the Crossfire. And the new drone tag BS module, aptly named for remote IDs, pretty BS all the way around in my humble opinion. But all I have to do with that module is put it in line with this GPS that's already there. This is my Vortex 250. It's 10 years old or more. I will never get remote ID on this one likely because it doesn't have a GPS on it. It's got a proprietary flight controller on it that I didn't build. I'm not going to take the time to go into it and figure out how to put either one of those RFID modules on it. And I'm going to fly it anywhere I want to fly it. I mean, it's just crazy. You can't. This was $750 when it was brand new. Nobody's going to take $750 and quit using it simply because of remote ID, in my humble opinion. This is flown line of sight, racetracks, freestyle, etc., etc. People just aren't going to do it. But they're also not going to throw away $750 worth of equipment as useless, in my opinion. This is my 7-inch long range. It's built exactly like the 5-inch. It doesn't have the telemetry I want. I want full MavLink on every platform I do. This one only has the Crossfire telemetry, which is a subset of MavLink, but that's okay. It's still got a GPS on the back of it and has since day one, and could be have the drone tag BS put on it in line with the GPS. This is my little Meteor 75 Pro. It doesn't have a GPS on it. It has Crossfire on it. I don't even know what kind of telemetry it may have, because this thing basically flies indoors. If you fly it outdoors, you're not going to fly it out of visual line of sight. It probably, even putting the little remote ID module on it, would weigh it down enough to where it wouldn't, just would be extra weight on it that's unneeded. Nobody's going to do that. I don't know how the FAA thinks people are going to do that. It's just not going to happen. But again, I'm not going to be flying this anywhere where anybody's going to come up and look at it and say, that doesn't have RFID on it. They're not going to come into my basement while I'm flying it and do that. They're not going to come onto my property where I'm flying it outdoors and do that. The problem here mostly is for Part 107 users who have to have a separate RFID module on every one of their platforms, even this, if they fly it for Part 107. That's one of the reasons I don't have my Part 107. I'm basically a hobbyist. I do have platforms, as you can see, from this tiny whoop all the way up to the big 6-foot wingspan airplanes. My greatest love is the airplanes, quads of the 5-inch flavor and up are, I like them. Really anything less than a 5-inch, at 70 years old, I'm just not much on drone racing. I don't do much freestyle. This is kind of a 5-inch long range. We know it won't go very far, not as far as the 7-inch. But the whole long and the short of this is, I think the hobbyists don't have much to complain about. You're not Part 107. You're not going to have to put a separate module on every one of them. And a $49 module, I'm going to be able to move from platform to platform to platform just by clicking a couple of cables. It's going to take me less than 5 seconds to take the module from one platform into another if I've got multiple ones at the flying field. I fly the little EVO, I land it, I pop the RFID module out of it, I pop it into the Sky Hunter back there and fly the Sky Hunter. I don't know that I would even buy the drone tag BS for these and put it in line with the GPS on this one and the 7-inch. I might. They're $89 instead of $49, which to me violates what the FAA told us when this was going to start up. They said all sorts of little modules would be available for $49. Well, it doesn't turn out to be true. I find one. Now, the bigger drone tag modules that weigh 32 grams and stuff, of course, you're not going to put 32 gram on this, ever. Even if you can get in there and wire it in easily. Not going to put that on that either. But again, if I had my way and I could find Dragon Link receivers right now, I'd take the crossfire off the 5-inch, off the 7-inch, put the Dragon Link on it, and I would have that clickability, put the drone tag on it. My whole problem with all of this is I like to fly long range. I would fly out of visual line of sight. Right now, if my airplane is a mile away from me at the field and somebody sees it, they can't identify it. They can't identify where I am. They might be able to follow it in a car to where I land it. That's debatable. But with an RFID module on it, they can point their cell phone at it if the range on the modules is that good, and find out my registration number and call the police, call the FAA, turn me in, and I would get a letter from the FAA, I'm sure. If they know to do that. I don't think the public is that smart. Police officers, I don't think they're going to care a whole lot about a guy flying a radio-controlled airplane out in the country where there's not many houses, just open fields, farms, etc. I don't think they're going to take time as they see an airplane fly over and bring out their phone, try to get a fix on it to get the information that the drone remote ID will give them. I just don't think it's going to happen. Now, if you are, as the FAA said in their last little listings, little Johnny is flying at a local soccer field during a soccer game, and the cop RFIDs his quadcopter and contacts the FAA, like all this would take place within a few minutes of itself. And the FAA tells him that little Johnny flies there a lot and is no threat. Everything would be cool. If anybody's there to do anything bad, they're not going to be out in the open to start with. They're going to be hidden. They're going to take off. They're going to fly over the soccer field to do their meanness. There's nobody in real time, even if they had RFID on it, going to be able to identify it and say, well, they don't have a registration number, so we need to stop them. Where are they at? Oh, they're flying from over there. The cops can't even get to them before they get in their car and drive off, in my humble opinion. All of this RFID is just crazy BS. Or, if they start letting us fly like they should, beyond visual line of sight, where I can take off from my house, fly out 10 miles, stay below 400 feet, just doing a pleasure flight, come back, land, maybe during the transits and stuff, seeing that there's remote ID in an airplane and it is registers, gives the people confidence that it's not a bad actor doing something. Why they would be worried about a bad actor in the middle of a 1,000-acre field out in the middle of the country flying around to start with is beyond me anyway. But that's the only thing I can figure out. And all of this makes me really mad. At one time, I'm not current on my private license, but at one time I had a private ticket. I could go to the airport and rent a 1,200-pound Cessna 150, fill it full of 50 gallons of avgas at 118 octane, and as long as I stayed at above 500 feet, I could fly anywhere I wanted to. But you can't do that with a small quadcopter right now, a tiny whoop if it would go that far, or a long-range large airplane with no fuel in it. LiPo battery is a bit of a problem, but there's not 60 gallons of avgas in it, and 1,200 pounds. 1,400 pounds with me in it. So all of this crap is just absolutely insane. When drones first came out, for the first 10 years, kids were flying them and skipping them off people's rooftops in a rural neighborhood. I'd say some people raised hell about that. And they shouldn't have been doing that. But they flew all over the place. There weren't a bunch of crashes. Nobody's been really badly hurt. I say let the bad actors suffer the consequences when they fly a long-range airplane or a long-range quad. 2 miles away, it burns up a ESC, falls to the ground, hits somebody's car or house. Let them pay for the damage. They should be in trouble for what they do, not what people think they might do. Secondly, what the hell is wrong with setting up insurance where they let me take my long-range airplane, fly it out 5 miles on a pleasure flight one day, and if it crashes and sets somebody's hayfield on fire, my insurance pays for it? The problem with this is, in my humble opinion, is the United States Congress gave the FAA mandates to get these just terrible drones under control. And there were no terrible drones. There was nothing going on. And in their laziness, they just went out and made a bunch of rules. They didn't go out and build a couple of platforms up and learn what was going on and what the possibilities are and what the true dangers are. They just call them all dangerous. And they have a fix for basically a problem that doesn't actually exist. Again, my Vandal with its long-range FPV setup here on the back has more capability of carrying bad items for a long distance than any of my platforms really do. They're just not going to carry that much weight. Okay, the Sky Hunters and the Mini Talons would carry enough to cause a problem, but I can carry much more weight on this. I can hide. I can run it up underneath the car and let whatever I put on it go off and cause damage. They're not talking about putting RFIDs on these things. It's really a problem. They're trying to do a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. And the problem is, they do exist, they're not even referencing. It's just absolutely crazy. But again, for me, at 70 years old, on Social Security, a fixed income, I neither have the time, the money, or inclination to pay a $1,500 fine when all I have to do is take that little $49 RFID ID module and click it into my planes before I fly them. And I can still fly out 5 miles and take the chance that the range on the RFID is not going to get people my registration number or anything, or they're not even going to care as they see it fly past at 400 feet. All of this is just taking up too much time, and I blame the FAA. The FAA needs to educate themselves, and with enough pushback, I think they will. But again, me, with my situation, I just don't have the money, time to go to court, etc., not to comply. I don't know what else to say about it. It is a bunch of junk all the way around. And again, I'm upset about whatever reason you can't fly beyond visual line of sight. Because again, I can take a light aircraft with gallons and gallons of aviation fuel on board and fly over these cities, towns, houses, etc. By the way, because there's not a bunch of hoopla about that. If you fly over somebody's house at 500 feet and they're out in the yard, they're going to run out and wave at you. They don't do that for a drone because they're suspicious that a drone is taking pictures of what they're doing, whether they're doing anything illegal or not. They just don't like that invasion of privacy. But if you fly a Cessna 150 over their house, they'll just wave and wave and wave because they're not suspicious at all that you've got a camera pointed out the window. It's all about perceptions and expectations, as with anything in life. If the perception is you're doing something they don't like and they expect you not to be doing that, they're going to be mad. Anyway, that's a little bit of my rant. And again, this remote ID, it's just a small bump in the road for me. I'm not going to fly it on certain platforms like my Meteor 75 Pro. I'm going to fly it on all the big ones. It's simple. It's inexpensive. I don't like the thoughts of it. I don't like the rules about it. But I'm going to be compliant enough where the FAA is going to leave me alone, or they're going to change the rules. This is me in post-production. Probably shouldn't make videos when I first get up in the morning. All through this video, I was using RFID in place of remote ID. They're completely different systems. I'm not going to get into the details of why they're so different, but they are completely different systems. Just me misspeaking. What a life. This whole thing boils down to, for me, the FAA should have just made a separate ticket for drones. You don't have to pass the flight maneuvers, this, that, and the other. Or they could have flight maneuvers you have to pass with your airplanes, quads, whatever. But in a basic fashion, no flight maneuvers. Just you know what airspace you're flying into, where you're not supposed to fly, etc., etc. Just like when you go and get your private ticket to fly a light aircraft. That's the way it should have been set up. So that you had to pass a test, just like you have to do when you do your check ride and stuff with a real airplane. You have to pass a test to know how to do everything, and that you can't fly within 5 miles of an airport and all the different classes of airspace, etc., etc., etc. And then turn you loose just like they do with a light airplane. This whole thing stems from fear of the unknown, that the general public doesn't understand drones. Anything anybody doesn't understand, they fear to begin with until they educate themselves about it and overcome that fear. This whole thing just really got me upset. Can you tell? Sorry about the rant. Thank you, guys.